6 o'clock, let's call the meeting to the Citizen Advisory Committee for the Costa Mesa Sanitary District, May 8th, 2023 to order. Before you do roll call, I just want to welcome the new members and welcome back the returning members. Yay. Okay.
You made it.
Madam Clerk,
Thank
roll
you.
call.
Francesca Normington, Rosemary Chora, Michael Toe,
Present.
Jeff Arbor, Dicky Fernandez,
Present.
Dean Fisher,
Present.
Daniel Baum,
Present.
Cindy Brenneman,
Present.
Annette Watson, Vice Chair Sue Lester.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anybody here for public comment. Did we have anything mailed in or anybody online?
No, Madam Vice Chair.
Seeing nobody here for public comment, we'll go ahead and close that out.
I would like to make a public comment. I'm sorry, I didn't know to raise my hand.
Okay,
Hi, my name is Rob Miller, and I wanted to make a comment about the challenges in complying with the regulations around trash and organics pickup that I'm seeing at a Costa Mesa soup kitchen. I wanted to bring up my concerns to the Citizens Advisory Committee first to get your recommendations. Specifically, I'm concerned that the cost burden of properly disposing of supermarket food organic waste is falling on nonprofit food banks and community kitchens, and that the supermarkets donating might be benefiting financially from shifting that cost burden to the nonprofits. As I see it, the path of the food waste is this. Number one, a profit-making supermarket donates unused food to the soup kitchen and receives a tax write-off for doing so. And then number two, as would be expected, some of the donated food, often a not insignificant amount, especially produce, isn't the freshest, and what's unusable must be thrown away by the soup kitchen as organic waste. Number three, according to current regulations, the soup kitchen is then responsible for separating this organic waste and having it picked up at their expense. Because of the volume, it's not at all unusual for the organic waste bin to fill up as much as 3 or 4 days a week, while the pickup only occurs once a week. So number four, the soup kitchen, a nonprofit, must then pay for these organics to be picked up at a non-insignificant cost to them. And then number five, when viewed through this lens, in my opinion, it seems as though the supermarket is saving money through tax write-offs via donation, and also saving money by reducing the amount of organic food waste that the supermarket must themselves pay to dispose of, while the nonprofit is having to spend money getting rid of that same organic waste. And I'm asking you guys if I'm wildly off the mark here, because if I'm not, then I'm wondering if regulation or legislation might be needed. And I was hoping that you could advise as to whether this issue might be needed to be brought before the full CMSD board. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you for your time and considering this.
thank you. Gosh, I don't even really know what to say about that. That's a legitimate concern.
Sure, I can try
Do
to
you-
address that.
you wanna
Thank
jump in
Thank you for
there?
the those good comments. As part of the SB 1383's regulations, but as beyond our purview, that's really more of the city's responsibilities for overseeing those programs. So what we could do is take the gentleman's comments and forward it to the city of Costa Mesa, because those comments were very valid comments and good suggestions to see what the city can do to help.
Yeah, and Mr. Miller, I don't know if you're aware of this or not. Costa Mesa Sanitary District controls the trash pickup for single-family homes, some multifamily, but primarily single-family homes, whereas commercial and the multifamily homes, like apartment complexes, big buildings, things like that, is handled through the city of Costa Mesa. But I'm really glad that you brought it here. As General Manager Carroll said, he'll forward the, kind of direct you to go to the city of Costa Mesa, and he'll forward the information as well. But with the laws that have changed, everybody's responsible for separating organic waste, whether you're a business or a nonprofit or a residence. So it's kind of everybody in different. But I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I volunteer at a wildlife center that needs a lot of free food, and it sounds like you guys are getting too much. So maybe we could work out something there too.
Great.
Please,
Thanks a lot.
Rosemary.
I'd like to add that maybe correct me, but I believe Cal Recycle has in place agreements between donators and donatees, so that if a supermarket wants to donate to a food kitchen, they can come into some sort of an agreement where the food, maybe where the kitchen might say, hey, we'll take your extra produce, but it's got to be viable for up to 5 days, or we'll take your load, but then you need to cost share in any disposal that might be caused by your donation, so that the handling of the organic waste is also shared by the donator, because as Mr. Miller stated, the supermarkets are getting tax write-off, and they are also meeting regulatory compliance by donating the food to the kitchen. And sometimes it can be a fine line between donation and dumping.
Good point. And if Mr. Miller can send me or send us his contact information, I'll be sure to forward that to the city, make sure someone reaches out to him.
Can you do that, Mr. Miller? Is he still there?
Yes, thank you. I will.
Great, thank you. Okay, next item, we need to appoint a new chair and vice chair to serve a 2-year term. Anybody interested in volunteering, or anybody like to make any nominations? You can either do it, can we do them at the same time, or should we do vice chair first and then vice chair?
Do them at the same time.
Okay, so, or if you want to make one, or Member Brenneman?
I would like to nominate Vice Chair Sue Lester as chair. I've been doing it for so long. You're very good at it.
Thank you. Anybody else want to throw their hat in the ring for chair? Okay, we have a motion and a second. I will accept the nomination, since nobody else. Donation, nomination, there's a fine line there. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thanks. I guess I'm your new chair. Now we need a vice chair. Does anybody want to volunteer? Because if not, I would love to nominate Michael Tao as vice chair. You would accept the nomination?
I'll accept the donation.
Donation, nomination. Okay, we have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Yay. Welcome to vice chairdom.
Congratulations on your appointments. The next step, Nolani will reach out to Chair Lester and Vice Chair to schedule a meeting with myself, and we will together work on a work plan for the upcoming year, and then we'll share that with the committee for your final approval. So that'll be the next step.
Excellent. Okay, next item, we have approved the Citizen Advisory Committee minutes from March 8th, 2023. Did anybody have any changes, or if you're okay with it, anybody want to make a motion?
A motion to move the approval of the minutes.
Second by Member Brenneman. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Daniel's abstention. We need her. Okay, great. Thank you. Sailing right along for the next item, I believe we're going to turn it over to Mr. Carroll.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to introduce Mike Valle. He's been here before to share with you his results of his waste composition study. As you know, as part of SB 1383, we're trying to encourage residents to source separate their food scraps away from the trash. There is, the new law does require us to fine people after, come 2024, they are requiring us to fine people if we find large contaminations. So Mike has been going around the community doing some studies for us to get it kind of feel how well people are doing. And when we see that the threshold is quite high, like say above 10% or above 20%, then we will go out and notify those residents, that neighborhood, saying, oh, by the way, there's a new law that's on the books, then we require you to separate your food scraps. And if you don't, by the way, you could get a fine, so that hopefully that'll catch their attention. I'm going to introduce you, Mike, is going to come up here and he'll share you the results of the fifth study he did. And then we'll be able to answer any questions you may have. So, Mike.
Everybody, good to see you again. Can you hear me all right? I don't want to get too close. If I could get some help on the page turning, that would be awesome. Basically, we were finally able to do sorts of Monday collection routes. So these were both on the west side of the city, north of 19th Street. And study number 1, there it is. Basically, as you can see the area there. So it was Placentia and Harbor, Hamilton on the north, 19th on the south. We can go to page 2, but really quickly, there was a lot of food waste contamination on this route. Last year, we did 4 sorts, and between food waste and green waste, which we consider contaminants in the mixed waste cart, we had a low of 10% contamination, a high of 19%. And with this route, we were 32, almost 33%. So a lot of food waste. Also, if you look at the trash there, you can't really tell from looking at it, but we had to separate a lot of food from trash in the process. So the weight of the trash was probably added to by the very liquid nature of the food waste. So basically, we had a lot of paper and cardboard that were also contaminated. If you scroll down just a bit, what we've been doing in our sorts is basically creating 6 categories. So we have trash, of course, then recyclable containers. Then we separate recyclable paper and cardboard into 2 categories: dry, that can easily be recycled, and then wet, that's contaminated by food. And that will hopefully be material that increases in recyclability as we move food waste. We also track, like I said, the food waste and the green waste, because those should be going in a different container. So green waste in this area was about 8%. Still a little bit higher than we'd like to see. I think the realistic goal is 90% of appropriate materials in the container, and we can deal with 10% contamination. Basically, we can go to the summary here, because I don't want to, you guys have probably looked at the report, but there was a lot of multifamily properties in this part of the route. And I think a common problem is educational material will go to the owner of that property, who may be on site, may not. So how do we get the educational materials to the individual tenants? That's where the cart tags can be helpful. But this would be an area where I think efforts needed. Participation rates don't appear to be very high in this area. So we can go to sort number 2. I'll give you a minute to switch that around. So again, that one was on the west side, north of 19th, going all the way over to Canyon and Placentia, and then Wilson on the top. A lot more single family properties in this area. And basically we did what we did with all the routes. We dumped a full trash truck. We cordoned off an area. We created grids. We took random samples. And unfortunately, the results of this sample, I think, were a little skewed by luck of the draw, which I'll get into it. But basically, food waste at 11%, a little bit higher, probably twice the ideal. I think 5% food, 5% green waste, 10% of the total container would be the level of contamination we'd consider acceptable. So this one's a little bit higher. The paper that was contaminated and not recyclable was definitely lower. If you remember, the last one was, gosh, where is it? 16.68%. So a little bit lower. Again, keeping food out of the trash is just going to up those numbers. But let's go to green waste, because that's what was skewed. I don't know if any of you have done gardening, but sometimes you'll pull out those roots and you just have the dirt that doesn't want to
Big old fat
release.
clump of dirt attached.
Yeah, you can see there's a lot of root material with dirt in there that we tried to shake out a bit, but that I think caused the sample at 16% to be a bit higher. So in my summary, you know, this area was supposedly 24% contamination based on weight. I think it was about in that 15% range. Still a little higher than we'd like to see, but not as bad as the numbers suggest. And again, that's the problem when you take 8 or 10 tons and take out a 200 to 300 pound sample. Sometimes it'll be skewed. So like I said, I believe this study showed this area to be a little bit worse in participation than they are. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? I have a question.
Sure.
When you guys, I know you guys do an entire truck, how do you attribute where the problem is when you're dealing with the whole truck? Do you focus on an area and then once you realize there's a problem, then you do the house by house and flip the lids, or?
Well, I think both are being done. So you're doing lid flips. What we're doing is just kind of looking overall to see how the routes are doing and see if we have improvement over time. Basically, the state has two different methodologies that they recommend. One is a dump and sort of the truck. The other is randomly flipping lids. Because there's so many accounts and lids to flip, it's impossible to flip them all. So this kind of study gives you an idea globally what that area is doing, and then randomly you will find contamination or not by flipping that lid. But again, everybody's household is not going to be flipped. So this is a way to look globally.
I'm assuming, I assume that the reason there was so much weight in the green waste contamination is because of the heavy rains that we have had. So when people are, say, pulling their weeds out, that big clump is coming up. And if they shake it, sure, some of it will fall behind, but a lot of it will end up in the can. Is that what you think happened? Because of the heavy rains, there was more dirt coming up with the green waste?
Well, it was a bit damp, so that could be a factor. Again, in this instance, that material should have been in another bin. So again, we're looking at percentages that shouldn't be in this bin. So I think it threw it off a little bit. But again, the load as a whole kind of dealt with the same situation, though. Your point's well taken. Material that's outside is going to be impacted by the rain more.
Imagine you do this for all the cities at some point. How is Costa Mesa, or the area that the Sand District serves, in comparison to some other of our neighboring cities? Are we kind of
You're
better,
doing
or?
better? You have a more mature program. So a lot more people have gotten the messages. Cities that this starts brand new at, they're, 30% contamination. So again, 10% I think is a long-term goal, and you already have some sections of the city that have only had 10% contamination. You had 2 that had 14, you had 1 that had 19. The sorts this time were, 24 and 33%. So again, the impact of rains would potentially cause that cardboard and paper that are contaminated to be a little bit higher, but it would also make the trash a little bit heavier because again, everything goes in that truck, it's compacted, it mixes together. So it shouldn't skew it too much. And again, being out there and actually having my hands in it, I can tell you it wasn't just water that was contaminating that cardboard and paper. It had odor. It was.
Well, after the weekend too, I imagine it was, Mondays are probably
Yeah,
kind of
Monday is
rough days
is a
anyway.
day we wanted to do for a while because again, theoretically everybody's weekend trash should be there when it's collected, but this would be fresher because it's right after the weekend. So that's a good point.
Any other questions? Daniel?
Do you have any suggestions or advice on how the multifamily areas can be better advised about this new law?
I think that the problem is the transitory nature. There'll be more turnover amongst the people living there typically than the single family home. But the biggest one is getting the property owner, the property manager, whoever's receiving that educational material in the mail as a billing insert to get that out to all the tenants. So again, what the district has social media, so they're trying to bypass that obstacle. Again, you might want to do some targeted outreach. What they used to call guerrilla marketing in the old days is just kind of going door to door and making sure, these tenants get it. That's the biggest battle. This is all education. This is ingrained behavior, and getting people to put something in a new container is just going to take time. So again, that's part of what the lid flipping exercise is. They put a little smiley face if they're doing a good job. It's a frowny face if they aren't. It's trying to, educate and cajole people to change behavior at this point in time.
And can I add to that? I live on the west side, and so I actually think more like culturally targeted outreach would be helpful. There's a lot of Spanish speaking people in that community. Working class people, they're walking to the nearby Smart and Final, and I would think that a lot in that neighborhood are not following the district on social media. They're not following environmental groups or understanding or in touch with statewide policy on organics, material handling. So just really thinking about how do we reach people where they're at, because I think with that, I think you might get a better response. In my opinion, I actually think it's at the supermarkets because all the families are going to the supermarkets. And
I'll pop up at the supermarkets and let everybody know.
And Northgate just had a huge event to announce their market that's opening in October. So that would have been a great opportunity, but I would imagine they too will have a grand opening coming maybe in October. That would be just such a perfect place to reach the Spanish speaking community.
Well, doesn't the district send their bills with property tax? Aren't those two together? They go with the building owner's property tax twice a year or annually or something. Because I think the owners in these instances are so far removed from the people that are renting either in their building or their home. And so the notices are getting mailed to the owners and the owners are throwing them in the trash. I know because I've lived in a place like that for 10 years. So it's going to take a lot of work to get the word out, but I'm happy to see that the city of Costa Mesa has finally started at least discussing it. So that hopefully will help. But you're right. I think we need to, target the different languages in places and ways that it's going to make the most sense for them. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, the next item is the preliminary biennial budget review for fiscal years 2023-24 and 2024-25.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So we're very excited to present to you our preliminary biennial budget to the Citizens Advisory Committee. And we do our budgets biennial once every 2 years. The reason why we do that, it's a little, Caitlin will attest to this. It's not easier, but it's putting the budget is very challenging. But because we are an enterprise fund, we can definitely have good estimation what our revenues are going to be in the future versus sales tax, where sales tax fluctuates a lot. So it's very hard for like cities to do biannual budgets because it's a lot of unknowns out there, where it's a little different for enterprise funds. We know what our revenue is going to be in the future, and we can budget appropriately for our expenditures. This is one of the reasons why we formed the Citizens Advisory Committee. We really value your input, the citizens' input on our budgets. We don't receive a lot of input on our budgets, so this is a great opportunity to make comments and suggestions and to the board. The board has reviewed the budget twice already. They will review it again either end of the May or in a study session in June, and then they will adopt the budget at their June meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin. She's going to go over more details on the budget, and please Let us know comments, questions, and anything you want us to pass on to the board. This is that opportunity. So I'll turn over to Caitlin.
Good evening, members of the CAC. My name is Caitlin Tran. I'm the District Finance Manager. I'm here to present the preliminary budgets for fiscal years 2023-24 and 2024-25. Both year budgets are balanced, meaning that revenues are equal to expenses. So this is just a condensed version of attachment A and attachment B. First, we'll look at the revenues, then we'll go into expenses for each fiscal year. So for fiscal year 2023-24, total revenue is 15,386,200. Right here. Okay. The general fund revenue budget of 348,000. This is where we record the property taxes, and then transfer to solid waste fund to help stabilize rates. Staff projects a 2% increase each year. The annual charge for solid waste and wastewater funds are charges for services that the district provides to the ratepayer. So that's the annual charge here. The solid waste annual charge revenue budget is approximately 6.5 million. It includes a 6% rate increase. For the wastewater annual charge revenue budget is approximately 7.6 million. It includes rate increases from the 2022 wastewater rate study. Staff projects a 0.1% increase in new accounts for both wastewater and solid waste. And of course, there are other revenues budgets as well, additional container charge, investment earnings, contribution, sewer permits, inspection fees, non-operating revenues. But the main, our bread and butters are the annual charge revenues here. Okay, next slide, please. And for fiscal year 2024-25 revenue budgets total of approximately 15.4 million. The general fund, 355,000 budgeted here. For solid waste, total revenue approximately 7 million. And the wastewater's approximately 8 million. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, now we'll look at expenses starting with fiscal year 2023-24 salaries and benefits. For here, you see how come there are two sections of salaries and benefits. The administrative, this is for HQ staff. And for the wastewater maintenance, these are the guys in the field at district yard. So total salaries and benefits, it's approximately 3.8 million. This includes a 6% cost of living adjustment, a 5% merit increase, and this increase does not apply to all employees. It doesn't apply to employees who reach their top salary range. Increase in health benefit plan, reclassification of the part-time code enforcement officer to a full-time position. We added a new full-time administrative assistant for the district engineer department. A new part-time accounting clerk for the finance department. Okay.
I have a
question? Is the increase in the health benefit plan, is it an increase in the benefits or an increase in the portion that is being thrown in on behalf of the employee?
Portion thrown in.
Well, does it,
the cost, it's not, there's no different benefits, it's costs are going up.
okay, it's just the overall cost in general. Okay, I just, okay, that's what I thought. I didn't know if you guys were adding benefits. or-
Oh, no, oh,
Okay. It's just the overall cost. Okay.
yeah. Okay. Next, we'll look at the salaries and benefits for 24-25. The total salaries and benefits for this year is approximately 4 million. It includes a 5% cost of living, a 5% merit increase for employees who are eligible. And this does not include any new position or changes in personnel that were not previously mentioned in the previous year. Okay. Any questions so far in this? Okay. Oh, okay. And then now we'll look at operations and maintenance for, again, we have this building here, staff, HQ, and then wastewater. The total solid waste fund operation and maintenance is approximately 6.3 million. The major costs for solid waste here are costs for CR&R, the trash hauler, recycling, right? Recycling, disposal, organics disposal. Okay. And total wastewater fund for O&M, excluding capital improvement projects, is approximately 3.6 million.
The question, the public info education promo cost under the solid waste fund, that's largely attributed to the 3-card system education program. Thanks.
So here are some of the accounts that are most significant increases. So like under professional services, these are all the activities, new activities for fiscal year 23-24. And then the public promo account, we have the 3-card system campaign. And then the we're planning to conduct a rate study for the solid waste. So we'll have to set up town hall meetings and Prop 218 notices. So that's why the Fund 10 to us to finance is solid waste. So if I say Fund 10, excuse me, the solid waste public info is so high. And for detail of each of these accounts, you can find them on attachment A, starting page 3 to 12. Okay. And then for operations and maintenance for fiscal year 2024-25, the total solid waste fund O&M is approximately 6.3 million. Again, the major cost, it's for CR&R, trash hauler, recycling, disposal, and organics disposal. And the total wastewater funds O&M, excluding capital improvement projects, it's approximately 3.4 million. Okay, next slide, please. And for this year, we have less activities than fiscal year 23-24, but the most significant increases are in these accounts here. And again, you can find the detail on attachment B, page 4 through 12. Any questions for this year?
The sheet up there that shows like what the professional service breakdown is. I looked at it in the attachment before I came here and honestly, I liked it better when we had the little things where we could click on the attachments when you guys were here, when we had like the little iPads or whatever, because we kind of, like, unless we print it out and bring it with us, if you guys don't show it to us up here, we don't really have anything to refer to. I have my scribble notes that I made.
Which fiscal year again you want to look at?
It showed, the question that I had was, it was under professional services. And it was an item, it was the itemized breakdown of what fell under there. Yeah, like you have the citizen-wide survey. And then what's the classification and compensation study? What is, how, like, is that something you guys do every year? Is that like your classification and your compensation for your own employees?
Yes. We do a study typically once every 5 years. We will hire consultants to look at our current job descriptions, look at what our employees are currently performing, see if they're out of class. We need to update their job descriptions. And then they also do a salary survey with nearby agencies to make sure that our salary is competitive with other public agencies. We don't try to be the highest, but we don't, in the competitive and the upper
Every
middle.
5 years.
Every 5 years. And I do have to say,
Okay.
this is the one area that I do have to admit, this is the one area that the board really sunk their teeth in on, and they really had a hard time with this line item. And so we'll probably go back with them, reducing this to about $30,000 and just suggest we do a job description analysis to make sure that there's no one is working out of class, because that could be a liability for us. So that's what we're gonna do. So that was what caught me off guard. The board really dove into just on that item. And so we'll be talking about that more in the month or next month. But just want to bring that to your attention. That was one issue that the board discussed a lot.
Yeah, I'm an HR person, and that's why when I see classification and compensation study, $50,000, that seems like a lot of money.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, how much work it encompasses or how much time is, you know what I mean? Like, and how deep they're digging, and so that's why I was.
The board had the same concerns. They thought $50,000 a lot, and so they asked us to what are other agencies, how much are they paying? We did find that Mesa Water District did a similar study not too long ago, and they spent $64,000 on their study. So we felt $50,000 was around the ballpark range. But knowing that the board, if that's uncoverable, we'll see if we can get down to $30,000 and see what we'll do at RP and see what's out there.
I feel like government or special districts, cities, I feel like you guys have to pay way more for services that the private sector gets so much cheaper. And I'm just basing that on my own personal experience. I don't know if that's true for this district, but that's the whole reason why I asked that, because I know you guys don't do it every year, and I haven't seen that in a while, and I didn't know.
5 years. We do it 5 years.
So, okay, it's
Yeah.
every 5 years, but yeah, that just seemed, I don't know, it just seemed like a lot. But I didn't know what it included.
Now, do we talk about CIP budget at all? Do you have that in your presentation, the CIP budget? Our capital improvement budget?
That will be later.
In your presentation? Okay, perfect. Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I had about that.
Back to the PowerPoint, please. Okay. One more, okay. So now we'll look more in detail CRNR rates. So these here are the current rates for the trash hauler per unit per household. This is how much we're paying CRNR. And then per ton, recycling per ton is $56.52. Organics per ton is $77. 4.77. CRNR has submitted an annual solid waste rates adjustment request of 7.1% for fiscal year 23-24. Per the contract with CRNR, they may request a rate adjustment annually, but it is capped at 5% per year. This will be presented to the Board of Directors for approval at a later board meeting. But for budgeting purposes, I include the 5% rate adjustment in this budget. So if 5% is approved, then this will be their new rate. As for fiscal year 24-25, I only included 0.5% for their rate adjustment. A budget deficit will be created if I apply a higher percentage for 24-25. In fiscal year 24-25 is when we have the 3 card system, and CRNR will have the new rate structure. They're gonna have trash hauler rate, trash tonnage, recycling tonnage, and organics tonnage. At this time, we don't have that information, how much the rate will be. So that's why in 23-24, we're gonna do a rate study and to determine if there'll be a rate increase in 24-25.
Is that hauler weight per day, per dump, per year? How does that work?
Per household,
Per unit, we're paying 10,000.
$10. Yeah,
Is that per dump or is that per, how, I just don't understand what that means, how we're paying it.
So
How-
the hauler per unit is per home. It's a home. Per home, yes. So that's per home. So we have, 20,000 homes. So you just, comes out to like $230,000 a month that we pay. And then the recycling is per ton, that's per ton. So that would be based on we get a monthly invoice from CRNR, the tonnage that they collected on the organics and recycling, and then they multiply that by those amounts.
Right, I can understand that. And then the hauler, what happens when they miss houses? Are we still getting charged for those?
We have liquidated damages now that's applied to our contracts. So if they miss a certain amount of homes, then we can charge them $100 per home for
As they have to reach a threshold.
Yeah, there's a certain threshold they have to meet every month, and if they hit that threshold, then it's $100 per home. Yes.
Is-
And I do also one of the organics recycling program. While it might seem high, remember we are guaranteeing the lowest rate of CRNR's customers because we're the first ones to implement the organic recycling program. Right now, the going rate for organics is about $130 a ton. So we're still getting a pretty good deal, even with that 5% increase. So
Is that 5% the one that they can ask for every year? And
So it's the max they can, according, if CPI is higher than 5%, they can't ask more. For example, I think the February to February was 5.1, 5.2%. So, but it's capped at 5%. They cannot ask anything more than 5%.
right, but that's the one that's on the contract that's above and beyond what the contractual agreement is, that gives them the opportunity one time a year to come back and say, hey, pay us more above what you have to.
Yes.
So the board doesn't necessarily, they're not obligated to say yes.
Correct.
But I understand what you're saying, that we're still paying way less than what the going rate is. So I'm not going to freak out like I did the last time.
Yes.
But my question is this. Last time when they asked for it, I remember it was turned down a couple of times because they were outside of the lines in terms of their contractual agreements with old equipment and missing pickups and things like that. Has that stuff been corrected for the most part?
Yes, we do believe it has been. Majority of I think really the majority of the reason why the board denied the CPI was just a tremendous amount of miscollections. I mean, it was way above normal on the amount of miscollections and all the customer complaints we were receiving. They were having a hard time recovering from COVID. But again, that's not our problem. We said, and you guys need to fix this. And so that was the primary reason why they were denied the rate increase. Now, again, this, like you said, this is not automatic, still goes to the board. They can still reduce that amount to 5% if they want to. We do have a right. In fact, our treasurer is trying to schedule a meeting with CRNR to look at their books to see what the profit margin is. Because if he determines they have a high profit margin, which we won't disclose, but we would go in a public setting. For example, we'll go into a public meeting and let's say the treasurer says, well, look, their profit margin is 20%. They don't deserve 5%. Then the board can say, okay, then we're going to give you a 2%, 3%, right? So we're in the process of doing that right now, see what their profit margin is, and then we'll report that in a closed session. And the board can decide if they want to approve the 5% or if they want to do a lower amount. It's up totally their discretion. We do not believe in some organizations have automatic CPI increases. We do not believe in that because that ties our hands. So at least the board has some discretion.
Okay.
What happens if the board approves of 5% and they only request 2%?
Well, whatever the board approves 5%, is 5%.
And then they could request 2% later, and that 3% we would just be paying them anyways.
No,
Oh.
if I guess I understand if they ask for a 2%, the board could approve higher, but chances are they're not.
I thought they haven't come to us with a request yet.
Yeah, they have. The request is the 5%.
Oh, they did.
Yes,
request
5%. Yes, yes.
And it's one of those things, it's built into the contract. So they will ask for it every year, for sure. They'll ask for whatever the max is. And I mean, you're dumb not to. And then it's up to the board whether they approve it or not.
But if CPI, let's say CPI comes at 3% and they're going to ask for a 5%, we're going to push back on them hard. We'll justify why do you need a 5%, and they have to provide that backup documentation to us and prove it to us that it's worthy. But chances are, if it's 3%, they ask for 5%, we're not going to recommend a 5%. So, yes.
Have you identified how you will complete your rate study, or if you have an RFP out for a consultant that will work on that rate study?
We haven't done an RFP yet. We won't do that till the budget is adopted till next fiscal year. Yeah.
Quick question. I see recycling, organics, and hauler. Is the trash rate integrated into the hauler per unit cost?
No, the hauler accounts for labor. The hauler cost is CNR's cost for labor. It's in cost for their maintenance of the trucks, their capital replacement, their insurance, stuff like that. The recycling, that includes the trash and the recycling, because we're all in mixed waste right now. So the recyclables and the trash is all inclusive of 156.52.
Thanks.
Anybody else question?
So then we'll see, like you outlined there for fiscal year 24-25, we'll see it separated into 4 categories.
Yes, that is correct. Right.
So I'm assuming by rate study in 23-24 that 24-25 there's going to be a new rate.
Yes, correct. Right. Yes. Yes, it will. Yeah, yes, we anticipate that. Yes, that's correct. They do. That's one of the reasons why our treasurer goes in. It's what that profit is, but because recyclables are very volatile, there are times where they are making profits, and so what they do is they hold on to the recyclables. They'll store it somewhere until the market changes, then they'll sell it. But that's a cost to them to store all that materials in a warehouse. That's a cost to them, so they're incurring that cost. But yeah, that's all taken into account, the amount of revenues that they receive from the recyclables. It's all taken into account in these rates. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So then here, staff looked at the data, the historical data for the tonnage. And so the tonnage times the rate equal the cost here. So for fiscal year 2023-24, if the 5% is approved, it will cost the district 270,400. For 24-25, if a 0.5% rate in CRNR rate adjustment is approved, then it's going to cost the district 29,100.
270,400, you already budgeted for that? Is it, the money's already there?
Yeah, so that's included in the budget,
Okay.
the number that I showed earlier. This is just a breakdown. Yeah. Okay, any questions? Okay, so CIP, capital improvement projects, for fiscal year 23-24, we're budgeting approximately 1.4 million and a 1.9 million for fiscal year 24-25. And these are all the projects we'll be doing. And I have the district engineer here if you have any questions on any projects. Do you have anything to add? Okay. And then we have capital outlay. The district is budgeting for $200,000 for the demolition of the old Hitchcrafter building at the district yard, and for fiscal year 23-24, and 500,000 in fiscal year 24-25 to replace the combo cleaning truck. As for the crane truck, staff are still determining if the unit will be need to replace or not. But right now it is in this budget.
Yeah. So that again, that's one of the comments the board made, is can we, so we have a fleet replacement policy. Typically, we replace our larger trucks every 10 years. So both the combo truck and the crane truck are at 10 years. The combo truck definitely needs to be replaced because we're seeing an increased maintenance cost. I think the last repair we performed was like $15,000 on the vehicle. So when the maintenance cost starts increasing, that's a good time to replace it. The crane truck, though, that was given a question on the board, and they asked that question. Well, do you use it enough, or what's the mileage on it, or how much are you using it? And after got the comments back from the board, talked to my staff, we concluded that we could extend that truck out for another 2 years. So we're gonna tell the board, recommend to the board, we're gonna remove that item from the budget and put that money back in the asset replacement fund.
What's the old building? Is
This so.
old empty building?
Right, yeah, that's the old Hitchcrafter building. It used to be a business that put hitches on trucks. And so when we expanded the yard, the city wanted us to keep that. So I think there might, and I don't know why they wanted us to keep it, but we're gonna try to go back to the city and ask to remove that building so we can increase our storage capacity at the yard.
There's no historical designation for that building? It's not old enough where it
No,
is that okay?
It's an old gas station. We know the tanks underground have been removed. So those are gone. I can't remember why they wanted us to keep that building. I have no idea. We do store some hoses there, some supplies, but it's not fully used because there is an office there. There are restrooms there, but we believe that if we remove that building, we can definitely expand our storage space.
Problem is circulation. When you have to take a very large piece of equipment like a vacuum truck, you can't just drive it around that little Hitchcrafter building. And so by removing it, we'll be able, if you notice, if you backed up a slide, you'll notice that area, that whole area is behind the Hitchcrafter area. We might be able to put a trailer in there, but it's wasted space. We have a lot of wasted space because of that. So from an efficiency perspective and a parking perspective, we would like to increase the circulation of vehicles in the parking area. And to do that, we would like to remove that structure.
When you do, trucks or large items, do you sell them or do they get put into like a reserve?
Yeah, so we will auction them off, and then whatever money we receive from those that auction, we put back into the asset replacement fund. Is that the last one? Okay, great. Any questions? So there's opportunities for providing your comments, suggestions, and we will share that with the board.
What will be the balance of the asset replacement fund? Just curious what that amount is projected to be.
Or you talk about the asset, that's the fund we use to replace our vehicles, right?
Oh, that's just solely for vehicles.
That's just solely for vehicles.
Okay.
Yes, yes. We have that, and then there's an asset management fund that we.
Asset management fund. Sorry,
Yes.
that's the one.
So
I was
we
thinking.
I'll have Caitlin respond to that, so.
Right now, it's about 4 million, and that is just for the capital improvement projects, the asset management.
And is any of that money, or what are your investments? Were you maybe potentially deriving investment income if you are from any of those reserves or funds? Are you?
Yes, we are investing
Okay.
using those funds.
In fact, if you want to, the next board meeting in May, our treasurer is going to be giving our board investment 101 presentation. He's going to explain what money we invest in. And so if you want to be here for that or watch on YouTube, we'll have that in the month.
And then I know we've had our discussions, but just in general about the other major capital project, the Eldon Force Main replacement, the redundancy
Yes,
project.
yes.
Where does that fall into the budget potentially?
We haven't budgeted at this point because the construction of that project a couple of years away. We just kicked off design, so we're in design right now. So we do have, again, later this year, our treasurer is going to give a presentation to the board about financing because that is going to be an option to finance and go into debt. So that we want to make sure they're well aware of that. But realistically, we're looking at probably a couple of years until we start budgeting the construction part of that project.
Would a project like that be able to utilize any portion of the asset management fund to offset those costs, the cost
could.
of borrowing and debt?
It could, but the board has a policy of maintaining a $5 million balance. And then that's usually for emergency purposes. So if we, like say, we had a catastrophic disaster and we're in disaster recovery mode, we need that money to, pay bills, pay staff, stuff like that. So.
Budget, I think, is 1.4 million, and the next year is 1. That's because some of that funding was used for some higher priority items this year, but I think typically coming in over I'll say the next 4 years of the 5-year rate period, it's about 2 million, a little bit more, that go towards the wastewater funds.
I just have one last budget question. So with the increase in the budget going forward, were you guys able to find the money by moving things around, or did you have to go into reserves to build the balanced budget?
We didn't dip into reserves at all this year. We were able to balance the budget.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Just one last question in terms of kind of the revenue projections, any potential red flags with regard to revenue projections over the next 2 years or is it all a conservative, really a fairly conservative projection? So
It's enterprise funds, so it's pretty easily project what the revenues are because we set the rates. So we know what it is. So the property taxes fluctuate a little bit, but again, we get minimal property tax. So it's not as challenging as again with cities.
And it's, if I can add to that, it's nice because we place the charges on the property tax. So we're pretty much guaranteed to get our revenue by the end of the year, fiscal year. Normally, we receive 99% of the revenue. So we're in good shape.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have closing items, committee member comments. Anybody? It's not on here.
It's not on the agenda. It's not on the agenda.
were just testing. I was paying attention this time. I didn't see that on here. Testing me. Did anybody have any comments they'd like to make, Michael?
Comment. I noticed that you, I think it was recently, a couple weeks ago, had a postcard in the mail to ratepayers about what you dispose down the drain. Just curious, what other communications you anticipate coming out maybe in the coming months, and if there's anything you could share with the CAC in advance of what may get mailed out to ratepayers in terms of communications.
I'm gonna turn over to Nolani and Gina. Do you guys know what we're mailing?
Great question. We actually have another postcard coming out very soon on odors coming out of the drain and how to combat that. So how to fight food waste odors. So we'll have some material coming out of that on the postcard, on our social media. We have some items and articles in our upcoming newsletter. So lots of material coming out.
Nice, thank you. I have a few things to share with you guys. I've been on the ad hoc policy review with my buddy Dean down there and a couple of the board members. And one of the things that we did review, and there's been reviews to everything and changes to everything that you guys will see coming forward once the changes are made. But I just wanted to tell you really quick that the handbook for the CAC has changed. They've eliminated term limits for CAC members. So you're free to reapply as many times as you want. Doesn't necessarily mean they'll keep reappointing you, but there's no limit to the amount of times you can reapply to be a member and serve on this committee every 2 years. So keep that in mind. The other thing is please review the handbook. We've been kind of lackadaisical as a group in here in terms of doing everything we're supposed to be doing. I think because we just haven't been reading it. Everybody's supposed to attend at least one board meeting or study session every year. So I know scheduling can be difficult with other things you have going on, but because we do have the opportunity to attend those things remotely, the board is, wants to make sure that we're doing that. So we know what they're doing. And also, if we're going to be absent, we're going to miss a meeting, we need to let somebody know. Either let the chair know, the vice chair know, contact the clerk, Gina, somebody, and let them know that you're not going to be here. We haven't really been paying close attention to that, and the board pulled absences and they weren't pleased with us. So we need to do a better job of communicating when we're not going to be here. The other thing I wanted to share is Saturday, May 20th. There's a compost giveaway that the district is sponsoring like they did last year at Estancia from 8 a.m. to 12. I'm sure you guys have enough people, but if anybody from the CAC wanted to volunteer, it's actually a really fun event. And the way they set it up is pretty amazing. It's very smooth. Also, if you need compost, make sure you go by and you get some. Also going on that day is Costa Mesa Day, which is a multitude of options for volunteering. If that's something that you want to do, you can get more information from that on the City of Costa Mesa's website. And then there's also a baby shower this is all happening the same day at the Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center. If that is interesting to any of you, that goes from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and it's located on Pacific Coast Highway in Huntington Beach. And because it is a working wildlife hospital, they can't generally do tours or anything like that. And this is one time that the Department of Fish and Game makes exceptions and lets people go in and see what's going on for educational purposes and for, the ability for us to increase our life-saving capabilities to the wildlife in our area. And that's all that I had. Anybody else?
Madam Chair, we also have a booth at the Island today. Thank you luncheon. So CMSC will be present there to provide organics information, SB 1383 information, and some kitchen pails. So
Yes, we'll have a 3-cart display. So we'll have the green, blue, and black cart out on display. So we should to give the public a warning, be a heads up, you'll be getting your blue card here soon. Also, I would like to.
it's going to be at City Hall. So the I Love Costa Mesa Day is the entire day. It's an opportunity to volunteer to do different things. I believe that there is a website that has sign up opportunities on there, but they're having a thank you luncheon for all volunteers at the end of the day.
It's a really big event. They do it every year and it's organized through Trellis and local churches and other, a lot of different entities, but they literally have over 100 activities, I think, that people can volunteer for, depending on what you like to do, whether it's clearing brush at Fairview Park or painting a crosswalk or removing shrubs from an elderly person's home who has been cited by code enforcement but isn't physically able to do it themselves. I mean, pretty much anything you could possibly think of. And over 1,000 people go to the designated places and volunteer. It's really fun. I wish I could do it. I'm actually
The
moving.
website is lovecostamesa.org. You can sign up there. I'm actually hosting an event at Paularino Elementary School for large item drop off. We're gonna have 6 40-yard bins there. You guys at no cost can drop off anything you guys want. And I'm also a part of the Labors of Love team, which does a lot of the things that Sue was talking about. We do that once a month.
Yeah, it's a very well attended event that they've done now, I think 4 years, 3 or 4 years, 5 years, something like that. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So if at some point you have the opportunity to participate, I would encourage it.
Definitely, and like Melissa, we'll have a booth there, a lot of giveaways, display the 3 cards. We also have our new management analyst, who starts with us on Monday. Her name is Marissa Pareda. She's gonna be working the booth. So you want to meet our new management analyst too, please join us at the booth on Love Costa Mesa Day.
Excellent. Any other board staff comments?
Madam Chair, one more.
Oh,
Jeff, sorry, go ahead.
oh, yeah.
We were talking about compost. So if the county has built 2 and soon to be 3 of some of the largest compost facilities in the region. And if you ever want free compost, you can just go onto the website and submit a request and go pick up however much compost you want. So just want to let you know, it's always available, including the giveaways that are happening here.
free to Orange County residents, right?
Yes,
that's awesome.
that's all.
One more thing, the Board of to hold a meeting with the CAC. So I'm just wanting to see if there's a preference in daytime or evening time meetings.
I prefer evening, and I would assume that many people here on the CAC are working full-time. So I would recommend after work hours.
Why don't we do it the old fashioned way? Show of hands. Who would prefer evening time?
Okay.
Okay. CAC prefers evening.
Does 6 PM around that time frame work typically? 6 o'clock? Okay, thank you. We'll probably shoot to have a meeting in June for the joint meeting.
That's all we have. Thanks, everybody. And we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:09. When will our next CAC meeting be? Do you have the date for that?
Is
Joint one, but we're shooting for a joint one in June, right?
the CAC meeting will be July 12th.
We'll have a joint one in June with.
Yes.
Okay, joint with the board and then the regular CAC meeting. Okay, excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.